Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's spring, it's lovely, and my seed starting is almost done. I still have some in-ground seed starting to do. I still have a few other things. Obviously vegetables I'll be starting soon from seed, but for the most part, most of my flower seed starting is done. And I've learned quite a few lessons this spring that I didn't think I would, but I did. So let me go over a few of those now with you, and hopefully you can make this a short video. So in the garage, I have my seed starting station. And I did a video about this, and I had it all set up, and I have grow lights and heat mats, and I have 10 by 20 trays that I put on there, and it's a wonderful thing. A few things happened this year that I wasn't expecting. One of them was, despite taking precautions and despite putting up fungus gnat traps, I had a plethora of fungus gnats, and they destroyed a couple of trays full of seeds, which was very upsetting. But probably not as upsetting as the mice that decided to run through my seed trays and have their way. It was kind of I have to laugh about it now. It's either that or cry. But the mice would get into some of the trays. Let's say there was a tray without cover, and they would go through this tray, and let's say it was something like, I'm just going to pick, for example, foxglove, because it's a very fine seed. They would dig through the entire tray to find this very fine seed that I can barely see, and, well, just destroy the whole tray. Afterwards, because it's such a nice, warm, cozy spot, they dig themselves a little burrow into the tray and have a nice nap until the morning, where they then ran off to someplace else. So, of course, you know, you're probably sitting there going, oh, put plastic covers on your seed trays, they'll be fine. No, because the mice apparently can lift and remove seed tray covers, which is pretty amazing, which is what they did on many occasions. They would pry up with their little noses or their little paws. I don't know, tried catching them on a trail camera, that didn't work. But they did that and got in and destroyed seeds. So I lost probably all my Rudbeckia. I think I lost half my Agastache. I lost a lot. It's very disheartening and very upsetting. Now I could go out and buy all those seeds again and try to start them again, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to move past. I can say next year I'll grow Rudbeckia, because one of the things I'm not going to be growing next year is snapdragons. I have a lot of snapdragons. I think I have over 30 that I've potted up so far, or up potted, and I have a boatload more to up pot. Let me show you. This container here is just one of those, you know, things that I had bought years ago, and I was growing all sorts of stuff in here. The last thing I grew in here was radish, but then in the springtime I was running out of seed trays, so I wound up using this for a bunch of my snapdragon seedlings and seeds, and as you can see, I have a lot to up pot. A lot. I can probably at least get 20, maybe 30 out of here on top of the 30 plus that I have already. So snapdragons are not going to be on next year's shopping list, so there'll be room for plenty of Rudbeckias and Coreopsis or Agastache or anything else that I think I can remember that the mice destroyed that I want to replace. I actually did keep a lot of the envelopes. That was another thing I did this year, is that I hadn't done in prior years. Usually I will take a seed packet envelope, and maybe you do this too, and I put it in the seed tray and I water everything in and take this envelope and throw it away. And then I can't remember, like, if that seed tray gets destroyed, what that was. And maybe I'll keep the tag, or maybe I won't, and I'll throw it out. And then come next January, when I'm looking to buy seeds, I won't remember, and I'll go, is that Agastache, or what kind of Agastache was that, or what kind of Rudbeckia was that? So this year I kept envelopes. So I just have a little box, and I've just been putting them in there. I'm going to try to keep track of what I planted and what I didn't plant, etc., or what grew, what didn't grow, so I can thumb back through that and go, oh yeah, that's right, mice wiped that one out, let me reorder that. So that's what I'm doing with that. I don't have enough seed starting pots. That's another thing I learned. And I thought I would have enough seed starting pots, because I try to keep and reuse my seed pots often. Here, let me show you. So I probably have about, I don't know, 60 of these or so. But with all the seeds I was starting this year, I filled them all up. I've used them all up. And I'm going to be giving away plants. So hopefully I get the pots back. But if I don't get the pots back, then it's just something I have to remember to maybe order next year. I will leave the seedling into this pot until it gets to such a size that it's sort of filling out the pot, and then off it goes to its home, either in the ground here or off to friends and family. Here I am prattling about pots, and probably the greatest thing that's happened to me this seed starting season is my greenhouse. And I say that because I started a lot of seeds in here. I quickly ran out of shelf space, which is fine. And everything that I started in here grew well. Everything again just grew well, did well. The heat was not a problem. The freezes that we had while some of the stuff was still seedlings really didn't affect the seedlings. I have no heat mats in here, but I do have that passive heating system with the milk jugs. They're spray painted black, and they again just provide just enough heat to keep everything okay. So the seedlings would come up and maybe we'd get a frost outside, but they're protected by the greenhouse. There's just enough heat in there so they won't die. And when it gets warm enough in there, it takes off. And again, being in eastern North Carolina during Zone 8A, the sun here is way different than it was in New York. We're approximately 500 miles further south, and it's more intense here. So when the sun comes out, it heats up the greenhouse that much faster. And then on a day like today, where it's only going to be about 60, I have to open up all the roof vents, and the greenhouse will stay about 80 degrees. Front door open, air temperature is 60, but inside the greenhouse, a little bit of sun, bam, heats up. So that's great actually, because again, it warms the soil that the seeds are in. It helps all the seeds germinate a little bit faster, and everything grows in here really well. Take a look. It's just fabulous. Everything that's growing, everything that I've up-potted, it's just doing well. Even stuff I've put on the floor, because I do have some dahlia starts and other things that I've put on the floor where it's a little bit cooler, because the dahlias are not ready to go out yet. Probably another month, give or take. Depends on the weather. And I'll talk about that when I plant out my dahlias. But I've put the dahlias on the floor, and the dahlias are responding well. A couple of dahlias are doing so well. Let me show you this. I've really, I had to move this guy outside. I didn't want him growing too much faster. This is a red skin dahlia, and this was something that I grew from seed. I believe not last year, but the year before. Last year, it was in a big terracotta pot that was holding open the door to the greenhouse. And it did its thing, got about 3 foot tall or so, beautiful flowers, everything was lovely. Actually 2 foot tall, but either way, put on its flowers, lovely, winds up, by the end of the summer, it's done. It's exhausted itself and it starts to fade back, which is fine, goes dormant. For the winter, I moved it into the greenhouse where it could just relax. I didn't do anything special, didn't treat it special, didn't put any fabrics or anything else over it. Again, the greenhouse stayed frost-free, freeze-free as it were, even with that crazy Arctic blast that we got done around Christmas time. About a month ago or so ago, I started digging up that pot because I started seeing some growth come up out of the pot. So what I did was I started digging it up, and then I looked and I was able to divide a couple of tubers and I repotted them, and this is one of them. This is how warm it can get in the greenhouse that it spurs a dahlia where it's, again, 60 degrees outside. Normally dahlias, they like the ground warmer and all, but because it's in a pot, especially a black pot, it started taking off like gangbusters. So I've moved this guy outside. The cooler nights will retard his growth because dahlias don't like cool temperatures or even cold temperatures. So it will retard his growth, which is fine. It's not going to kill the plant. It's just going to slow it down. And then again, probably in another, month, we'll have to see how the weather goes, I'm going to plant this guy out in my dahlia beds. I've actually got roughly-ish 30 days left of using this greenhouse before it starts to get too warm. Even with shade cloth, this greenhouse during the early summer, right through the summer, can maintain a temperature of about 120 degrees internally. That's too hot. I will basically, by that point though, most, if not all of my seedlings will be done. Everything will be moved outside. And if I do have some seedlings still left growing, whether in trays or pots or something like that, they'll go out on the potting bench off to the side and they can remain there because again, the nighttime temperatures and stuff will just be they'll be fine. Plus, a lot of the seedlings I've already started moving outside because they're getting large enough. They can handle the wind. They can handle, well, they can handle the 80 degrees inside the greenhouse. They can handle the 60, 70 degrees days out here. So I've been moving stuff outside. It's a sheltered growing space. It's wonderful. It's awesome. Again, experienced gardeners, you all probably know this, and you're probably just, drinking your coffee or tea and just going, sure, Jason, we understand. But to me, it's exciting because this is new to me and I've never done this before. Now, knock on wood, I need some wood quickly. So, we don't get hit with any hurricanes this year. Hurricanes miss us, they graze us, they go anywhere else but here. And the greenhouse survives so that I could, again, do the same thing and grow my seeds in the greenhouse next year. Now, again, lessons learned, I won't grow anything in the garage again. Greenhouse, I started seeds and I had no problems with any animals attacking them. And it might be because of my guard lizards. The other thing I discovered with my greenhouse was down here we have these little green lizards called anoles, green anoles. I'll post a picture. And I call all of the ones I see in the greenhouse Harry. Harry and his friends love the greenhouse and they've loved it all winter because it's so warm and it's humid, which they love. So normally out here in the great wide open, the lizards go to ground. They find someplace warm to hide out. They go into maybe some sort of hibernation. I don't know exactly how they do what they do, but you can't find them until it starts warming up. And the days really have to get to 50 degrees or over before you see them out anywhere on a banister or a tree limb or someplace trying to sun themselves to warm up. In the greenhouse, they didn't have that problem. So they've been running around, but they haven't damaged or harmed the seeds. They don't go for that. They actually go for the bugs. And that's probably why I have virtually no fungus gnats in the greenhouse, which is great. Definitely no mice. Again, maybe they're scared of the lizards. So everything I've grown in the greenhouse has gone well. So the next thing I'll mention is shelf space. And I have two benches running along either side. This side is longer. It's the whole length of the greenhouse, which is 12 feet. And it's wonderful. I have 12 feet of space. It's 2 feet deep, which is plenty for me. Because I bought the extra strengthening supports for the greenhouse to deal with high winds, I have these little crossbars that are everywhere. And so they're ad hoc shelves, which is great. I can put pots right up on there. And I don't have to worry about really that blocking any light from for the main shelf below. But one of the things that I've discovered is something like a 10 by 20 tray, which is standard for most gardeners when seed starting, takes up a lot of room. And if you look, like for instance, this is another type of Snapdragon called Royal Bride, I believe. Yes, Royal Bride. I have to start uppotting this guy soon. There's a lot of wasted space in here. This is wasting a lot of space and it eats up a lot of space. And so when you're starting seeds, shelf space is a premium. Again, expert gardeners, you guys with 20, 30 years experience out there, you know all this. I'm preaching to the choir. So, but new gardeners, you got to watch your shelf space. Maybe a 10 by 20 seed tray is just going to be too much in the limited space that you may have of growing things. And again, I have one 12-foot bench and the other bench is 8 foot because I have my my potting table at the end. So I have an 8 foot and a 12 foot. And you may think that's a lot, but again, when you're growing a lot of different varieties and you use those 10 by 20 trays, they eat up a lot of space. The other problem then becomes is when you start up potting and you move everything from, again, you may have 100 seedlings in a, again, 10 by 20 tray, let's pick, but then you up pot them into 3-inch or 4-inch containers. That eats up a lot of shelf space as well. Now, thankfully, at that point, usually those seedlings, so especially me here in Growing Zone 8A, your story may be different. They usually don't stay in the greenhouse that long. Again, I've already been moving seedlings outside because, again, the weather's at night has been great. The daytime temperature's been great. So I've been moving them from the greenhouse. Once they get large enough, I feel comfortable putting them outside, and I put them outside so that frees up shelf space there. One of the things that was beneficial to me this year was making my own wood seed trays. Now, I used pallet wood, and I've done videos on this before, so I'm not going to drone on about that because this video is already probably running too long. But again, this is smaller than a 10 by 20 tray, which is nice, and it doesn't take up as much space, which again is nice. But I only had so many of these, and I was starting more seeds this year than I ever have before. So I had to go out and do the one thing I didn't want to do, which was buy more seed trays. And let me show you what I got. The seed trays I got were smaller than 10 by 20, and they're made out of recycled plastic, and they're hard. They're hard, okay? They're not gonna crack. They're gonna last you a good long time. Now, these are made by Garland. It's a UK company. They've been making seed trays in the UK forever. This is, I don't know, I want to say like a 6 by 9 maybe. And again, if I was doing something, you know, like I actually have sets of onions growing in something like this right now. Let me show you that. So these are my red rock onions. And this is, again, like a 6 by 9 tray. And there's quite a few of them in here. And I will leave them in here probably for another, I don't know, week or two. I got to see how they grow. But then I will take them from this tray and then I will divide them up and then plant them out into the raised bed once I feel that they're going to be big and strong enough. Some of these are putting on their first true leaves, others haven't yet. So again, got to give it probably another couple of weeks. But this 6 by 9 takes up very little space. And you can see, again, I have quite a few onions in here. And since it's only really me and my wife, and I'm not market growing, you know, this is fabulous. And I needed to grow a lot. I would use this. This is a, does it actually say on here? It says standard. I would say this is probably a 9 by 15 tray. So it's smaller than a 10 by 20. And you can see these have wonderful drain holes on the bottom. So I'm not a market gardener. And if I was a market gardener though, I would probably stay with the 10 by 20 trays. I would, again, they're larger trays. You're going to be growing larger quantities in them. I'm a home gardener. I'm not growing for the mass market. I'm not growing thousands of plants, hundreds even, although those Snapdragons gotten pretty close. So the smaller trays work better for me, and maybe they'll work better for you. Now, my existing 10 by 20 trays, I'm not throwing out. I will use them until they are no longer usable. They start cracking and falling apart. And a lot of those 10 by 20 trays are made out of relatively thin plastic. I believe you can get some much stronger, heavier ones made someplace. I can't remember the website name. If you guys know, please leave a comment below. So as those 10 by 20 trays start failing, I throw them in a recycling bin, hoping that our local recycler can actually recycle them. Anywho, I'm prattling on. So it's been a crazy seed starting year. I've learned quite a few things. I'm already looking forward to starting seeds next year in the green, of course, in the greenhouse, not in the garage anymore. So what will happen with my seed starting station in the garage? I will turn around and take up all those heat mats and those lights. Most of the lights are LED shop lights, so I can use them elsewhere. And those heat mats, let's say next winter is just, you know, ridiculously crazy, not just that one-time blast, but you know, we just have continuously cool nights, really cold nights. Then what I could do is I could wind up putting the heat mats in here in the greenhouse to help start my seeds, but I don't think that'll be necessary. But you never know, so I'm not going to throw out my heat mats. I will keep them. I will reuse the lights, and the shelf space I could always use for whatever I find that needs to go into the garage. I've prattled on too long, and this video will probably be too long, so I hope you found this somewhat entertaining, informative, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I enjoy all of that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and check out all the links below. Did I say that? If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click on that bell icon, that usual shtick. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.